All right, we're back. We're here to do Married at First Sight. Season 17, episode 11. So, when we look at the first scene, we're seeing Emily and Brennan making pizza and having a conversation about their relationship. And she thinks that their relationship is actually getting better. And he doesn't seem to disagree, with that. And so then he comes up with the idea that, well, Pia told us to do this exercise, but I'm not really comfortable with the way that she described it. So can we do a hug instead? And Emily was like, yeah, I like hugging. And he gave her like this weak, lackluster, hug. And I know that she's really wanting, the relationship to work. So she's just trying to accept him on his level. And then we come to the next scene, which is the experts getting together with Michael. They're congratulating him on him being able to weather such an embarrassing and heartbreaking, thing to be left, at the altar. And so after they kind of go through and they listen to him and they ask him, well, are you open, to doing the experiment, again? And I don't remember if he gave the answer, there. Maybe he did. But he is, and I think I'm skipping ahead, but later he's pictured, with his friends and he's asking them, well, what do you think, about me if I were to do the experiment again? And I actually really appreciated the support that his friends gave him. They were really concerned about his welfare, and they just wanted to protect him and make sure that he doesn't put himself in a situation, where he's trusting these experts and then they really don't have their process down as well as they probably should. So then Dr. Pepper, shows up, and then she answers some of the questions, that they have concerns about. And then she lets Michael know that they have found someone for him, and if he's interested, then he can repeat Married at First Sight, again. He accepts, the offer. And it's really, a nice moment. When Dr. Pepper came in, he asked her, for a hug, and she said yes. And so it was a good scene. I actually, really appreciated, that. So we're looking at Cameron and Claire to go to the skiing date. These are all anniversary dates that, people are going to. I don't know if the pizza thing was a date for Emily and Brennan. I don't know. I just saw them as making dinner. So, they did end up going out to dinner later. So, yeah, that was just them making dinner. And so, Claire and Cameron, I have on the video that they have boring fun. And that's just about the way that it is. I think Claire is really overthinking a lot of things and interjecting stuff that really doesn't matter at this point into the relationship. And just really being more cautious and aloof than I think that she probably, needs to be. And then we're looking at Becca and Austin. They're sitting down talking to Cal, and they got into the conversation. She explained it on the after show. I think she said that he was looking to design a hat, and the one that he kind of came down on was one that had like a Christian symbolism, to it. And then that's how they started, talking about it. But when I actually heard Austin, it just confirmed, what I've suspected, about him. He only knows what he was told growing up. He hasn't done any real work to find out what he actually believed, about Christianity. And this is really sloppy, because this is something that especially Cal should be drilling down on people on as they're coming into this process. They need to know where they are in their religion, whatever it is, and be able to communicate that. And Claire is not, she thinks that she's secure in where she is in her religion. And she should ask for somebody who actually was a believer. Again, I said that, in a previous, video. And so is Austin, especially if he knows how reticent he is to be physical, in a relationship. Being with someone who's on a level with you is it's just a barrier you don't even have to really consider until later in the relationship, when y'all want to go into specifics. But when he doesn't have anything specific, then how is he supposed to communicate his beliefs, to the person, that he's with? And so the thing came about that if you don't believe in Jesus, then you're going to hell. And what a lot of Christians don't understand is, even if you believe in Jesus, but you're not being obedient, then your soul is still in danger of going to hell. Like, I've got to get all kinds of stuff, out of me. Like, I curse too much. I know. And, there are other, things that I need to get outside of me. My anger, is one of them. Really hard, for me to forgive people. So when I actually do try to make an effort to forgive somebody and give them a second chance, and then they screw me again, it's, it puts a bitter taste. It's a bitter taste in my mouth. And I have to learn, like when he was on the cross, had been condemned, by people that he was trying to help, and sitting there dying, and people are laughing and pointing at him like, oh, well, I thought you was with God. Oh, if you was with God, then you'd be able to get yourself off that cross, and this, that, and the third. And, the jeering and all of the humiliation, that he had to suffer. And then for him to still ask the Father to forgive these people because he knew that they were operating in ignorance. And that's exactly where Christians are today. You're operating in ignorance. And the grace that you're being given is because of that. And I just really appreciate the Lord and his grace. I appreciate the Lord and his grace to me, and being able to stop me in my tracks and try to teach me, something. So I'm not guaranteed to be able to serve him, in his kingdom, and knowing what I know. And this is the thing that Christians don't want to understand. They want to believe that church stuff. Oh, well, once you, confess and believe in Jesus, then you're going to be saved. You're going to be in the kingdom. That's not actually true. And one of the things that helped me begin to understand this is when, like I told y'all, he actually made me go sit down and read. And when I got to Matthew 7, it really started to put the fear of the Lord back into me. Because when I got down to verses 21 through 23, I had been reading that scripture my entire life. And even as a child, I kind of wondered, well, who is he talking to? And it kind of hit me that he's talking to believers. Because if you go back and you look at what those verses are saying, the stuff that people are relaying to him, oh, I did this, and I did that, and this, that, and the third. And that's not stuff that non-believers are going to do. Non-believers are not interested in serving Christ. And they're not going to do any of the things that these people are communicating to him in those verses 21 through 23. And yet he still says that he's going to tell them that have that kind of conversation with him that he doesn't know them, that they need to get away from him. People who are working in iniquity. And if you don't think that he's serious, he talks about it all throughout the gospel, especially in Matthew, child. It's in there. And I know Matthew 25 is one of those chapters. It's the whole chapter. The whole chapter is talking about people who should know that don't know and end up missing out because they don't know. The other thing Christians don't want to look at is what he says about hypocrites and hypocrisy. That's all throughout the Gospels. He doesn't have a positive, warm, fuzzy feelings about hypocrites. If you or a hypocrite, you in trouble. You in trouble. He talks about it in Matthew 3 with John the Baptist. Talk about, separating the wheat from the chaff, and the chaff is going to be the one that's thrown in the fire. He talks about that in John. He talks about that in, I want to say Luke. He talks about, what else did I want to, let me see. Did I have this? The book fell. What else is he talking about? Oh, come on. My goodness. I get on my own nerves sometimes, y'all. So I have here, I've got Matthew 3, and I've got that Luke 3 and Matthew 3 match each other. So if you look at Matthew 3, and then you go look at verses, and you go to Luke, and then you look at 3, verse 9, and 3:17, those match what is being said by John the Baptist in Matthew 3. I told you about Matthew 7. I told you about Matthew 25. Y'all need to read John 15, 16, 17, John 8, John 10. John 10 is talking about the door to the sheepfold. He said that if you don't find, if for people who are trying to create their own way into the door of the sheepfold, child, you ain't going to be successful. There's only one way to get into the sheepfold, and that's through him. And it's there. So for people who want to rely on what your pulpit pimp, every person who has graduated from a theology school is lying to you. The stuff that they're being taught is not what's biblical. It's all like a philosophy, class. It's interpretation, and it's, what you think about it, instead of reading the word as it's written and then seeing how you measure up, to it. And when I actually I went and looked at the commandments, I didn't measure. I broke every last one of them jokers. I actually had 2 abortions, because I knew that I wasn't going to be a fit parent. And so I didn't want to bring a child into the world that was going to be abused and that wasn't going to be, raised in the right way. So I remember my second abortion. That was one I was really depressed about, because I never intended, to have another one. And I was stupid and got myself, mixed up in a situation. And then I was like, I don't have anything to teach this child. And I had to actually tell myself, that truth. Very hard thing I had to, come to terms with. Do I believe in abortion, for people who say that they believe in Christ? No. Do I have condemnation, for people who made the decision to have an abortion? No. So these are the kind of things. And then I've had some comments I've seen some comments where people are lashing out at Cal and they're lashing out at Becca. Oh, well, it's not what you want to believe, it's what's written. And he was right. Cal was right when he was talking to her. And he said there are plenty of things that people who know about hell, they still ain't doing what they need to do. And they know about hell. So, and I just, for people who are non-religious, if that's your thing and you're not interested in, what Christians have talked about, child, just keep living your life. Because they're going to be some of the first ones to hit it. And like I said, it's throughout the chapter. So in Matthew 25, one of the last examples that he gives, when he's talking about the sheep and the goats, he's telling you that he's going to kick you out. And there's going to be a lot of weeping and gnashing of teeth. And that means regret. Christians go blind, when he's talking about that kind of stuff. And, the way that Christians treat each other, they are supposed to be some of the most loving people towards one another. And they hate each other. Look at what white Christians and some stupid black Christians are doing to Palestinian Christians, over there. There are Palestinian Christians that are being persecuted right now. There are Christians in Syria that are being persecuted right now because the Christians in America are sitting up amening the mess that Trump did, they amening the mess that Obama did, and they amening the mess that Joe Biden is doing over in Israel, right now to the, Palestinians. So, I mean, for everybody that wants to say, oh, well, Trump ain't my pastor, he my president. I don't need no morality out of my president, but he over there killing Christians. But because they ain't white enough, these Christians are not white enough, so they don't even matter, to white Christians. There is a sickness and a disease that has happened in the supposed, body of Christ. And it's something that, needs to be, addressed. And it's another reason why, people who are coming up don't want to have anything to do, with Christianity. And it's well earned, Christians. I was looking at the thing and I'm on a rant, so please excuse me and give me grace, please. Joe Biden was at the church today in South Carolina, and why he is confident going up inside of a church where he is conducting a genocide right now is beyond me. And black people who invited him to come there, and then there were people there who were chastising him about the genocide, and then they were drowned out by people who were saying 4 more years, 4 more years. And then this black woman got up, talked about, you a good man. See, this is the difference. This is the difference between baby boomers and people who are after them. And I grew up around baby boomers. Like I told you, my dad is one. My mom wasn't a baby boomer. My dad was. He was born, I think, he might not be a baby boomer, because I think he was born just before the war ended, because all the baby boomers were born after the war ended, after World War II. So I think he and my mother aren't really considered baby boomers now that I think about it. But anyway, they still did the whole thing. The Tooth Fairy, Santa Claus, the Easter Bunny, all these white lies, all these white religious lies that you have to, unentangle, yourself from. And I've actually had a conversation, with my dad, about this. And he actually got mad at me when I told him that I couldn't vote for Joe Biden, because this is back in 2020 now. This is, before all this stuff that we're looking at today. And I looked at his record. His record it is nothing but anti-black. And it's anti-black. It was just, and the people in South Carolina, I mean, it's really, we could have had Bernie Sanders as our president, but you got these old black people who sat up and listened to Jim Clyburn and his nuttiness. He is a neoliberal shill for Zionism. There are a lot of Jews that are Zionists, but like Joe Biden said, you don't have to be a Jew to be a Zionist. And so he is a proclaimed Zionist. And he actually believes in Zionism more than he believes in his religion, more than he believes in Jesus Christ. He's a Catholic. And I actually remember talking some years ago with this guy who's got moneyed Catholics, and they were pilots and stuff. And he was telling me, how dogmatic, they were about in their military zeal. And that's back when I was really starting to learn, a lot about, Christianity. And Catholics, for all their junk, oh, well, we don't believe in abortion, and we don't believe in, divorce. Child, it's just, when you actually want to go and study all the religions, not just Christianity, you go study Islam, you go study Judaism, and me now, Hinduism, Buddhism. I don't believe in no religion. Because the Buddhists are over there torturing the Rohingya, the Muslim people, in Rohingya. And you got a whole bunch of Chinese, Christians that have indoctrinated, the nastiness and the lies, that Christianity, is full of. And they're over there abusing the Uyghurs. And it's just, it's just abuse. The people in Pakistan, they don't like the Afghans that had to run away because they didn't want to be under Taliban rule. But now the Pakistanis don't want them in there. And then you got the Hindus that don't like Muslims. And then you got white Americans that don't like Muslims. And, the Jews. And and then they don't have any respect for black Christians. One of the things that the Lord actually taught me, and I'm going to finish, with this, is when I was studying. So even if people want to say that slavery in the Bible is accepted, one of the things that's not accepted is if you have a person who accepts the Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, into their lives and their heart, they deserve to be set free. And it didn't matter to white slaveholders that those slaves actually believed and worshiped Jesus. They still kept them enslaved, and they still wanted to be able to use them for their benefit in perpetuity. And that is why the Civil War ended up being fought. It wasn't to free the slaves, but it was to preserve the Union. And as a result of all the craziness that happened during the Civil War, the slaves ended up being freed with the Emancipation Proclamation. So, doing all of that, I really encourage people to not take Christians seriously, especially black Christians. It's called being colonized, okay? And that's exactly what Israel was trying to do to the Palestinians until October 7th. And now they done figured out, well, we can't colonize these jokers, so now we finna get rid of them. And so, and nobody's talking about the West Bank. And the other thing that I want to say is, for black people that want to ignore this, oh, it ain't my problem. It ain't got nothing to do with me. If Palestinians end up getting reparations because of the war crimes that we have engaged in with Israel, then black people, black Americans, might as well hang it up. We're never gonna get, reparations. We're never gonna get them, and it's gonna be your fault, because if you were one of the people that did not want to pay attention to the suffering that was happening to other people and be able to utilize that said suffering that they've undergone for 75 years. We've undergone the same type of thing, because the people in Tulsa, they were bombed. There was an airplane that went over and bombed those people out of that place, and then white people went over and took over and got the land and stuff that they wanted to use, and black people were displaced and have not been compensated, for any of that. Any of the atrocities like they had in Wilmington, North Carolina. There were atrocities that were committed all over this country. Rosewood, Florida, and we won't come together and stand up as one people. We'll stand up in the church and sit up and call a malignant nut like Joe Biden a good person, and have him inside of the pulpit where he has no place. No place. You offended over a devil. Let me move on, child. Let me move on. So, Becca, girl, don't worry about going to hell, because Christians going to be there before you get there. Because the Lord, and first, I want to say, it's either in 1 and 2 Peter, where he says that the people of the church are going to be the ones that's going to be judged first. He's coming after his people first in judgment. So where are we? Lauren and Claire are talking, and Orion and Cameron are talking, and I don't even understand why they had Orion talking to Cameron, because he's talking about he wished he had advocated for himself. Child, all Orion did was advocate for himself. It became the Orion show, how he felt, what he thought, what he needed. Well, he wanted a divorce, he couldn't forgive. So I don't know what other advocation, he could have thought that he wanted to do, for himself. So yeah, I had to blank out on that, because Claire's talking and she knows good and well that at this point she's not interested in trying to be emotional with Cameron. And on the after show, she gave this stupid story about how she came home one night and was trying to be intimate with him. But why would he want to be intimate with you when you don't even want the man to touch you? You don't want to hold his hand. You know, he's saying something, to you, and you're like, oh, well, you could have just said chewing. You didn't have to go and be a smarty pants, and say mastication. And then the other thing with Cameron is he has a smart mouth. So if she told him, well, I tried to, tell you that I was hot and I wanted to open a window or something, well, the thermostat is right over there, just little smart things, that he would say. That's not how you build and begin a relationship. If that's the kind of communication that you want to start to have with people, then you're going to have to wait until they actually know you and know your humor, okay? Because they could actually take that the wrong way, Cameron. And you want to do all this touching instead of talking. No, cousin, you're going to have to learn how to talk. I can't stand men who will be trying to touch all over me. I mean, you don't even know me. Why are your hands? Why are your hands all over me? And you barely even know my name. And they're just really disgusting, like that. And he needs to do something. He needs to do something about that. He needs to learn how to communicate himself. And Claire, you need to learn how to relax. If this is your husband, if this is a relationship that you want to work, then girl, you're going to have to hold some hands. You're going to have to give kisses on cheeks. You're going to have to rub backs. You're going to have to give compliments. You're going to have to, really let a person know that you appreciate them, for who they are. And then encourage them, hey, is this something that we can work on, together? And then thinking about Cameron, I meant to say this on the other video, where he was talking, and I'm sorry I can't put up flashbacks and stuff, I feel really limited, in this channel right now. But I remember when he was talking to her friends, and he was saying that, yeah, he would do and say little things to her, and then have to go back and apologize. See, that's the kind of stuff that dirties and muddies up your relationship to the point where the woman doesn't want to be, married to you, anymore. I mean, just really, it's called being thoughtful. I mean, like when you are trying to get a seed to germinate, you have to treat that seed gently. You have to give it just enough water. You have to put it in soil that has nutrients in it. So when the seed starts to germinate, it can have sustenance in order for it to continue to grow into the plant that you eventually, want to have, whether you want it to be a flower or whether you want it to be something that's going to actually nourish your body. You can't just take the seed and throw it in any kind of dirt and leave it there and not water it and not give it air and sunshine and then think that it's going to be, a viable, productive, thing for you to enjoy on the other side of its growth. I mean, it's like 17 seasons. 17 seasons, and then this is the ignorance, that we all have to sit and look at. So, Becca and Austin, they are looking at their anniversary. No, they are looking at their wedding video and kind of reminiscing, about that. And one thing I actually do like about Austin is that he is trying to be affectionate, with his wife. And just, I appreciate, that. So then we're looking at Brennan and Emily. And they are going on this really beautiful horseback ride through the mountains. And it looks like he is really connecting with the horse more than he is to his wife. And I'm tired of him with his stonewalling. The woman wants to do things to become close to you. And you should be giving her, that opportunity. You can't treat her like you're treating somebody that you're dating. And then turn around and say, well, divorce is not an option. And my thing is, I'm wondering if he's going to start doing things to make her want the divorce so then he can run around and tell people, well, it wasn't me. I don't want the divorce. Whatever, Brennan. So we got, who we have? So yeah, Cameron is enjoying going out biking with his friends again. And then Becca and Austin, they go on their anniversary date and they're ice skating. So that's a decent scene. I encourage you guys to go look at that. And so Brennan and Emily are, what are they? They are going to dinner. And then he is talking and says something about, well, whenever I see a red flag, then back in the past, I just run. But, now I'm still here in a relationship. She was like, am I a red flag? And he was like, yeah. Okay, real smooth, Brennan. You make us know why you had to come on Married at First Sight. He's judging her for her lifestyle, and I actually have a serious, problem. I have a serious problem with that. So the next scene, Cameron tells Claire that he's not coming home. One of the things that I heard him say to Orion is that he's trying to tell her, well, maybe, this is not working. Then she'll say something that'll give him hope that they can work it out. So I think that he just kind of broke it off and stayed away from her and told her remotely so that she wouldn't Jedi mind trick him into, trying to stay. Because he is one that he says he thinks she's attractive. And he's attracted to her, but he understands that she's not attracted, to him. And I want to say that I saw something where he told her that he asked the experts for somebody tall, and he didn't get that either. It was things that he wanted that he told the experts that he was looking for, and then she showed up being all of 5 foot, and he had to adjust. It was something, but I tried to go back and look for it, and I couldn't find it. So I was very frustrated, about that. So anyway, where are we, child? Are we going to the dinner? Oh, no. We're looking at Austin having this nutty conversation about hell with Becca's friend. And it was just a stupid conversation because this is how we get off track. I mean, you don't know scripture, but then you're so comfortable in what you say that you believe. Where is this belief coming from? Because we actually adhere to our jobs. So we have this thing called Standard Operating Procedure, also known as the SOP, that's on your job, and you get a manual. Even if you're working at McDonald's, child, they give you a manual and tell you the do's and the don'ts, of working there. And people will take that manual and they will follow it to a T. And if they catch you not doing something in the manual, then they're ready to go and tell on you, okay, and get you fired. But then when it comes to the manual that's supposed to help you save your soul, yeah, we just gonna wing that. We're not gonna go and look and actually see what it says and adhere, to that as serious as we adhere to the rules on our jobs. We're just gonna wing it and say, oh, well, I don't know if I believe in hell. Well, Jesus talked about it. So if you don't believe what he said, then why are you even saying that you are a follower, of him? Another thing that Christians, just don't want to tell the truth about. And I just thought it was really super stupid. I mean, these are not about your feelings at this point. If you're saying that this is something that you're committing yourself to, then it behooves you to actually know what it is that you're committing yourself to, or else don't do it. And I left Christianity because I understand how fake it is. Not just because of what the doctrines are saying and the different sects that they have, but also just the way that people act and the way that people treat each other and the way that they treat me. So, and then I some years ago, I stopped talking to white Christians about the Bible because I know that they are ignorant, about it. And now I'm at the point where I don't even talk to black people about it either because they're just as ignorant, about it as white people. And that whole, it's a fake spirit. It's a fake spirit behind it. So, yeah, I didn't like that conversation that Austin had. And then that's when I skipped ahead to Michael, and I already talked about that. And then now we're at the dinner. And so, who asked it? I think Becca asked the question, and then Emily answered it. And then she was like, okay, we're going around the table, and she told Brennan that it was his turn. And he was like, yeah, Cam, you can go ahead. And so Cameron starts talking about his relationship with the marriage. And then Becca and Austin, they talk. And then Emily asks a question to Cameron. No, she asked a question to the table. And then Cameron took it up. And then that's when he was like, well, this is where I am. I mean, a full out. Because this is not working. So I want us to finally get on the same page. And he said, at the count of 3, you're going to say what page you're on, and I'm going to say what page I'm on, and then we'll see if we're actually on the same page. And she said separation, and he said divorce. And then, so, that was it. And it really just kind of struck me how bubbly Claire was at the table, like, oh, my marriage just ended, and oh, well. And then Brendan is looking at them like he is jealous. He wants to be able to have that kind of conversation too, and let Emily know where he is. And then he asks a question, and Cameron is like, well, I think it's time for you to actually answer that question. You haven't answered any other questions tonight. And he hemming it hard, and Emily is sitting there looking to kind of hear what he's going to say. And then here he is, oh, we're just taking it day by day, day by day, day by day. I mean, really not saying anything to help this woman figure out if they are on, the same page. And then she gets up and says that she has to go to the bathroom. And I thought this was really, really strange. He said, well, I'll go with you. I've never had a man tell me that he'd go to the bathroom with me. And I'm like, why would you want to go? You haven't sat and looked at this woman the whole time that y'all been sitting at the table. The only time it looked like he looked over at her was when the food came. And he was like, well, where's the meat in your food? And she was like, oh, I forgot. And Cameron had this big hunk of meat. She was like, oh, I'm jealous. Because Emily liked, she's a beef girl. And so she was like, yeah, no, that's okay. And so she went out, and then Claire followed her, and then they were talking, and she was saying, how frustrated she was. And then she was like, yeah, I'm finna go home. And then Brennan came out and was like, well, what's going on? And Claire was like, well, she likes you, and she's frustrated, about where y'all are in the relationship. So then he goes out and is talking to her, saying the same thing. Well, I just don't feel it. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And, she's like, yeah, dude, I'm over your sorry. Okay, what I want is some answers, out of you. And he just is not trying to provide, any for her. And so Cameron and Claire, they go back to the hotel room, and they have their anniversary gift out there waiting on them, and they look through the book and all of this, that, and the third. And Cameron's like, oh, well, time for me to get my stuff and leave. And then she hugs him and says, you deserve somebody, that really loves you, and this, that, and the third. And the episode is over. I was loading up this episode, the night of, and I just really started to get depressed. And then I really realized that the episode was longer than I expected it to be. So I had to stop and just kind of gather myself, and then I went ahead and reloaded it, the next day. I don't know if I'm going to do that again, because sometimes I think I need to just watch it myself and then kind of process and then upload it. So that really was a New Year's gift. Doesn't look like, a lot of people appreciate it, but for those who did, thank you. For all the new subscribers, welcome. And I hope that you appreciate the information, that I'm putting up. I think I'm at, 40, almost 40 minutes. And yeah, this was a different episode. I wasn't expecting it. And so thank you for your time and attention. And anything I did not cover, I'll try to pick it up, in future videos. So have a good night, and Happy New Year, to everybody out there. I don't know about 2024. I'm always praying, for positivity and just waiting to see, what actually manifests. So Have a great and prosperous new year, and I will talk to you guys on the next video.